This is my journey. Inspired one story at a time, a library of leaders was created. It began as a journey to learn. As time went on, it began to grow. All it needed was a platform, and this podcast was created to listen, to inspire, to share. I am a storyteller, and this is my journey. Welcome to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. I am your host, Steve Anderson, and today our guest is Everett O'Keefe. Everett is a Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and international #1 best-selling author. The Power of the Published is his most recent solo work. He has also helped create and launch more than 200 best-selling books for his clients. Everett speaks across the nation on the power of publishing. He is the founder of Ignite Press, a hybrid publishing company that specializes in helping entrepreneurs as well as business and medical professionals ignite their businesses by becoming best-selling authors. Everett is the author of multiple awards, including the Publish and Profit Award for Excellence in Publishing, the Make, Market, and Launch It Award for Product Creation, and the Top Gun Consulting Award, among others. He is the co-founder of the Business Accelerator Group, a high-level mastermind group composed of international marketers and publishers. He also founded the Mastermind Retreat and hosts international mastermind events. In 2019, Everett founded the Book Publishers Network, a group of publishers, publishing consultants, book coaches, and other book professionals. In 2020, he founded the Publishers Mastermind in order to help support publishing professionals from around the world, and he also now hosts the AuthorMind, a mastermind group exclusively for published authors. Everett is sought out as a speaker, coach, and consultant by authors and marketing experts worldwide. With a passion for entrepreneurialism, Everett helps his clients become recognized experts in their field through speaking and authorship while allowing his clients to focus on their own areas of giftedness. So Everett, welcome to the program. It's great to have you on today.
Well, hey, thank you so much for having me on, Steve. And for anyone who's not watching but is only listening, they need to know Steve is in his wine cellar and it looks amazing.
Yes, it's a wine cellar slash studio, so that's what I do.
And you only drink one bottle per episode, right?
That's right, right. We have to be careful on that. So let's just start with a little context. I know that you're Californian, right? And so just tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how you got to where you are today in this book publishing world.
Yeah, born in California, raised in Fresno, California, went to Fresno State, uh, did my education in English literature and composition, and never thought I would do much with it. Ended up actually I planned to teach at one point, but then got kind of pulled into the business world while I was wrapping up college, and I never thought I would look back. I you know the joke around the joke around about getting degrees and stuff, right, is will you ever use it? Will you ever find yourself using it? Anyhow, was in the business world for a while, and at one point started a marketing company with a good friend of mine, John Writing. And that marketing company was called the Solution Machine. It was, hey, if you've got a problem, we have a solution and we'll find it. And we were leveraging offshore resources to accomplish some pretty cool things. And then ultimately decided to try writing a book. I'd always thought of writing a book, and I grabbed my business partner and I said, hey, tomorrow let's meet in the conference room. Let's write a book.
Yeah.
He's like, why would we do that? Or what are we going to write about? Like, I don't know. Let's figure that out tomorrow in the conference room. And so we wrote our first book called the Video Tractor Beam. We were doing video marketing. And I wrote that book. The whole idea was just a test project, Steve, in order to see if we could rapidly write a book and make it an Amazon bestseller.
Yeah.
And a month later, I was sitting there looking at the book, and um, it was outselling Malcolm Gladwell and John Maxwell and a bunch of other people that I really highly revere. And that's when I realized that we were probably onto something.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of a publishing company. I never thought when I was doing my education that we'd ever be publishing books. Writing books or publishing books. Never thought it would ever really happen, but here we are.
There you are. And for those on the video, here's the book, the Power of the Published, and in the book you tell that story and many others, which is well done. And one of the things you say is that authorship just gives, people immediate credibility. So, because I interview a lot of people on this podcast that have written books, and I've often wondered, how do they do that and why do they do that? And your book kind of lays it out that, there's a good business case or a good business point to be made that if you are an author of a book, people just look at you differently.
Yeah. Steve, it just occurred to me, what percentage of your guests do you think are authors?
That's a good question. I'm just going to take a wild guess, but I'd say probably 30%, maybe 40%.
30%,
You know,
40%?
and the reason for that is because, people that are trying to promote their book or promote their thing, often will reach out. And so, that's not everybody, but I mean, in the book, you talk about how rare authors really are. The percentages are like minuscule.
Yeah, and it's funny there was I think it was a Pew Research study some years back that supposedly found that 89% of people that responded want to write a book someday. I don't know if that number's true, but I think we can assume that huge numbers of people want to write books, whether that's fiction or memoir or their nonfiction book. But the truth is, very few people ever see that through. A lot of people start books, very few people finish them, even fewer see them published. And so the authors really get to breathe rare air, as I like to describe it, because there's just so few. One great illustration of this happened. I was speaking in front of a group of retired women here in Fresno, and these were all really well connected, old money kinds of families. Speaking to the group, and I said, okay, I said, raise your hand if you've met an attorney in person, and they pretty much all raised their hands. I said, okay, raise your hands. How many people have met a doctor in person? And of course, they all raised their hands. I said, how many of you have met an author in person? And only a few hands were up. And
Yeah.
then I said, how many of you have met a best-selling author in person? And there was only one hand up. That was my mom. And
Yeah.
and that really reinforced to me how what an incredible qualification that is. And so for those people who are in the business world who want to build or support their brand and share their message to the world, a book is such an incredible tool to give authority and immediate expert status. So, but yeah, that was a fun exercise. That was the first time I'd
But
ever done that.
Yeah, but writing a book, is daunting, right? I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, well, what do I do? Do I sit myself in a chair and force myself to write, or do I just write when I'm inspired? Or, no one seems to feel like they have time to do something like that. So, how do you help your clients do that? I mean, do you actually help them do the writing? Do you just have just give us some examples?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm with you, and a lot of people we have this stereotype that to write a book we need to, sequester ourselves on Walden Pond for 6 months, and grow our hair out, and all of that. And that's just not true. It's not true at all. There are a lot of different ways of writing books. Some are incredibly rapid. Our first book, the Video Tractor Beam, we wrote by putting a microphone in front of us on the conference table, and we employed what we call the FAQ SAQ model. So we started by writing down frequently asked questions about our business. In this case, it was about video marketing. Like how long does a video need to be? Does a video need to be funny? Do you have to use an expensive camera? Do you have to use an expensive mic? Some really common questions. And then we wrote down questions that people probably should be asking. Like what should the video accomplish for me? How should I think about my watchers as I'm recording the video? And then we just spent 5 or 10 minutes dictating the answer to each one of those questions. And honestly, a few hours later, we had the core transcript for a book because that could be, the audio could be transcribed. You have it even easier now, right? Because now you can just record it into your phone and have the voice transcribe it automatically, or you can use an app like Otter.ai. And every industry has these frequently asked questions. And for a rapid way to write a book, whether you are a real estate professional or a medical professional or a waste management professional, um, it, you know, you can rapidly write a book around those frequently asked questions. And of course, now also you have tools like AI that can even help you come up with those questions if you don't know those questions, or make you think, help you think of more. And I think that's where AI is really useful is for some of that brainstorming stuff. As far as the actual writing, Steve, some people will do it like I like to write, which is I'll just carve out an hour or two a week. I will sit down and I will do a chunk. I find I can usually write between 1,000 and 3,000 words in that time. Um, and if I do that 10 or 20 times, I have a book.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and a
But
lot of
you're,
people get hung up on the
yeah.
length of their book too, and that's another conversation.
Well, but you're, you have a degree in journalism and writing, right? So it's, you're a little bit different than the average business guy that just thinks, oh, I should write a book. So,
Well, okay, fair enough. I'm pretty comfortable with my writing. Doesn't mean I'm a great writer, but I'm pretty comfortable doing it. Um, but the nice thing is there's so many tools available. A lot of our clients will use book coaches. They will use a book coach to help guide them through creating their content, determining their target market, honing down their message. And that is really good for a first-time author to
yeah,
have someone like that kind of riding shotgun in that process. And then a number of authors, they don't want to write at all. And we kind of joke around that some people really would rather be authors than writers. And for them, ghostwriting can be very effective. A huge chunk of the New York Times bestsellers are written by ghostwriters.
yeah.
All these celebrity books and things like that. So a lot of clients will leverage ghostwriters as well. Um, and then there are other rapid writing methods. Steve, I mean, you as a podcaster, how many episodes do you have out now?
Probably around 250 something, but I've probably done 280 interviews over the years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have a huge amount of content sitting in those podcasts.
Yeah.
People who blog have a huge amount of content sitting in their blogs. And repurposing content is a huge and easy way to write a book. A lot of people already have all their content right at their fingertips. They just need to have it transcribed or organized. A lot of people deliver keynotes. Well, that can be the foundation for the book.
Hmm.
They assemble a collection of blog posts. That can be the book. Training videos. These are all ways to rapidly write a book to bring to market.
Yeah, what is it about books? I mean, if you think about it, why are there even bookstores? With Kindle and Audible books and things like that, you'd think that just go away, but I guess they did slump for a while, but they seem to be coming back again. So there's something about books.
Yeah, you're on it. I mean, the great thing is, and when I talk about books, we're talking about like all the formats. But it was, yeah, very interesting. Ebook, the whole ebook thing, they said, oh, print is dead. The ebook is going to take over everything. And it peaked at about 10% of the market.
Wow.
The one that is climbing rapidly now is audiobooks, which has been growing by double digits every year for the last 6, 7 years. It's been having really rapid growth. And I don't know if that'll eclipse the physical book or not, because we all, I know, I don't know how you are. Well, actually, which do you find yourself reading, paper, electronic, or using audio more?
It's really interesting because so I kind of go back and forth between like a Kindle and Audible. And but when I prepare for these interviews and I want to read the books and whatever, I like the physical book because I can go back, forward, look at things, do things in a more efficient way. So usually authors that I interview, I ask for a hard copy. So I guess depending on what I want to do, I use all three.
Yeah, and I think that that's the way a lot of people are consuming their media right now. So for instance, what I find is I read fiction on my Kindle. I often will read nonfiction by physical and then audio, I will do whatever's convenient,
Yeah.
like, or whatever's available in the Libby app or the Audible, or my Audible subscription or whatever. And I think a lot of people do that. They're bouncing between formats. The one exception is the romanticy is
Yeah.
this big genre right now, and everybody's doing collectible physical books for their fantasy and romance and fiction stuff. But,
Interesting.
but the
Yeah.
rest of us are bouncing back and forth. And also, Steve, there's a new format coming that people aren't talking about yet. And I got a sneak peek at it shortly, or a little while ago. And that's an AI book, where you'll basically be able to download the book like you would a Kindle, but immediately be able to listen to audio versions of it in multiple languages, maybe in multiple voices. Also be able to read it in multiple languages and be able to query the book, be able to interview the book basically, have it create a study guide for you, have it summarize characters or plot points, have it pull out the most important elements. You'll be able to do all sorts of things with this if this gains traction. So we'll see. So
Yeah.
who knows, if that one gains traction, I see the traditional ebook falling by the wayside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe the traditional audiobook would fall by the wayside too. But then that's, AI narration, which is getting really good, but I
Yeah.
don't know if it can replace a really good voice actor or,
Yeah.
listening to the author themselves.
Sure. One of the things you state too is that even if someone hasn't read the book, they're still heavily influenced by it. So, one of the points you make in your book is that, it's just get it out there, get it done, get your name on it, get a nice cover on it, and that alone will influence a lot of people what they think about you and your business.
Yeah, and this may, maybe this comes across a little rough, but the truth is that um, there is great power in the unread book. Now, every author wants their book to be read, and of course, I'm not a proponent of putting out cruddy books.
Mhm.
But the truth is that book will influence people whether they ever open it. So if you're writing a book for the purpose of your business, for increasing your authority, building your brand, and you give that book to somebody, okay, actually think about it. First, even if they never have seen the book, but they only hear that you're an author and they hear the title and the subtitle, they are going to immediately assume you are an expert about this.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Steve Anderson writes a book, and it's called Profiles in Leadership. You immediately assume Steve Anderson is an expert at leadership. And in this case, we'd be right to make that assumption
Well,
too.
thank you. That was
Um,
something. Yeah.
but let's say that book, someone buys that book and it just sits around their house. It is continuously screaming your expertise. Every time they see it, they see your name, your title, your subtitle, and they know that you are an expert. And as you know, Steve, people don't throw books away, right?
Yeah.
A book hangs out. I'm sitting here and I have on my desk probably 8 books that were given to me that sadly I will probably, I don't know if I'll ever read them, okay?
Yeah.
But each one of them is reminding me of that person and of their expertise. And so there is truly great power in the unread book.
And not only and not only that, but I think, I just learned some really interesting things in your book, and the things like the average book sells less than 250 copies in a year, and most books never sell more than 500 copies in their entire lifetime. So it's not like I think we fall into that category. So oh, if they're an author, they've probably sold tens of thousands or hundred thousands of books, but that's not true.
No, it really isn't true. And of course, that's across the entire spectrum, of books. The huge bestsellers and the self-published. But there was an interesting proceeding. It was a legal proceeding last year, and I think it had to do with Penguin. And one of the attorneys was asking a question in some cross-examination and basically let it drop that about 20% of their books sell less than 20 copies.
No,
Now, nobody verified that and nobody questioned it. Like it was just something said as an aside. I don't know if that's true, but if it is true, it tells you that traditional publishing isn't necessarily all it's cracked up to be either, in the sense that obviously they get some copies that sell a ton, and
yeah.
that makes up for the ones that sell very few.
And that's, I think, another thing I read in the book too, where you said that, like these big publishing companies like Penguin and others that we all know, um, they only take like 80 books a year,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, they take very
And
few.
so I think we all think the competition is, well, I could never write a book and sell it because, how could I possibly, compete with the authors that are known and whatever. And if they're only picking 80 a year, they're going to go for the slam dunks, the ones that have already sold a bunch, in the past. So it's hard to get in hard to be published in, I guess, the traditional way.
Yeah, it totally is. Unless, usually they're looking for you. Do you have 25 to 50,000 followers? Do you have a proven track record of sales to the masses? Do you already have a huge following? Because yeah, they don't want to roll the dice,
Yeah,
right? They want it to be a sure thing. Um, but that kind of takes us into that whole idea of, is really traditional publishing the way to go?
right.
Um, such a challenge. But a lot of us think, yeah, we need to go the traditional publishing route. And if we do, they're going to line up major media for us. We're going to be on Oprah or Joe Rogan or, the Today Show, Good Morning America, whatever. They're going to roll all that out for us. And of course, as you know, that is sadly not the case.
Yeah,
Most authors that go the traditional publishing route, even if they get picked up, are woefully disappointed when it comes to the marketing that happens, and they find the marketing really falls on them.
yeah, interesting. And I think you got to do things for the right reason. And another thing you said is that royalties are not the reason to write a book, because you're never going to get rich writing a book unless you're, that top elite, proven author that just keeps selling books no matter what you write.
Well, and that's the crazy thing is even the people who are selling gads and gads of books don't make their money on their book. They make their money on speaking, on licensing, on other things, because the royalty percentage is usually so small.
Yeah,
Um, and and for us, that's fine. It's okay,
yeah,
because for us publishing a book into the business world, we are going to make far more money on what the book accomplishes for us than we ever would in the sales of it.
right.
The royalties really are, don't matter. I kind of joke around with my authors. It's like, would you rather get your ROI one digit at a time through book sales, or would you rather get it four or five or six digits at a time through new clients, new opportunities, new contracts, things like that.
Well, and you even recommend, that if you write a book for those reasons, that give away as many as you can.
App. Yeah, that's right. You'll make way more giving your book away than you will selling it. You want to get that book into as many hands as possible. There's a marketing strategy, also that's discussed out there that which is seeding, that you need to seed books into the marketplace, which means basically giving books into the marketplace, so that you get enough people talking about the book and that it starts to gain some traction. But if we're in the business world, if we are writing a book to elevate our authority and our reach, man, I want to get that book into anyone's hands that,
Yeah.
is appropriate. Now, Steve, let me ask, did I send you one copy or two copies of my book?
You sent me one copy.
I sent you one copy. Okay. So I ask because now when I send books to people, I will almost always send two.
Now that you say that, I might have received two because I
Okay.
think I remember thinking, well, oh, it must have, that was a mistake. Oh,
No, so
I was
it's
stretching.
it's
I was stretched. Okay.
now whenever I meet someone, I get them two copies of my book. I get them one for themselves and one to give away to somebody that they think may benefit from it. And so I feel like I am just duplicating, my efforts by doing that. And if you're speaking someplace, every person in that room should get a copy of your book, whether you're selling it to them, bundling it into the speaking gig, or you're paying to put one on every seat. And the truth is if you're leveraging print on demand publishing, that book might cost you $3. Well, what you think of the cost of spending $3 to get your best marketing tool into somebody's hands?
Yeah.
And what the ROI can be of that. I will make that exchange any day.
Yeah, and I thought what was so interesting is that again, it's the why. So, traditionally we would think of, oh, if I'm gonna write a book, then I have to sell the book and I got to make money on the book to make up the cost for the book. But if you're doing it as a investment to a return on investment from, more clients or more exposure or more opportunities to speak in front of people and whatever, then it might just be a cost to do business. So it's a very different mindset.
It is, and you have to think about where is the ROI. If it brings you, if a new client is worth $10,000 to you,
Yeah,
well, how rapidly, I mean,
yeah,
the ROI is really easy. If a new client's worth $500 to you or $50 to you, the ROI can happen really quickly. We had one client, Monica, she wrote her book, and while she was preparing her manuscript, we encouraged her to get some endorsements. And so she reached out to some people in her industry to ask for endorsements, and she sent them a portion of her manuscript and asked them to, hey, review and provide me your thoughts. She scored three speaking gigs from that process. She had paid for her book project before we ever published,
that-
which is not common, but that was fantastic. So
Well, if I can put you on the spot for a minute, it's, I was waiting for the book to tell me, how much it's going to cost for me to write a book, which isn't in there. But, and the reason I ask is because, again, if you think of it this way, it probably doesn't cost as much as you think it would. On the other hand, I've heard stories where, you say like ghostwriters. I heard a story from a colleague of mine who said, yeah, I got my book out there. It was great. And he goes, I had to pay the guy $80,000 to get the book out. But he looked at it, as you're saying, but that was an investment in my company. So, I mean, I'm sure there's a wide range and there's different approaches and whatever, but what are we talking? Is this a big, huge investment, or can you do it fairly conservatively?
yeah, I'm really glad you gave that context because he probably saw that as one of the best $80,000 investments he ever made.
Yeah.
But you don't have to invest $80,000 to do this. Ghostwriters are not cheap. It is very common for them to be $35,000 plus.
Yeah.
But most of our clients don't come to us through ghostwriting. Most of our clients are writing the books themselves. And you can invest if you choose to invest in a book coach that has different flavors to it. You can spend anywhere from a couple thousand to $15,000 on a book coach if you choose to hire a book coach. From
Hmm.
the publishing standpoint, um, you know, you've got companies out there like Forbes Publishing and some others that'll charge $150,000 to publish the book.
Hmm.
We are a very small fraction of that. Most of our clients, quite honestly, engage with us between 11 and 15,000, depending upon the project.
Yeah.
And for most, for our clientele, that's reasonable. That's within the scope of an investment because you are talking about the one marketing tool that you can create for your business that's going to outlive you.
Yeah.
Most things we create for our business, if we're doing them for developing business, might not outlast the month. I mean, or the year.
Hmm.
But the book is something that you'll be able to utilize over and over and over again. Um, it's pretty incredible. I see how much money people spend on different tchotchkes and giveaways. Like let's say here's a branded mug, or here's a branded pen, or whatever, those types of things. And that's great, but those don't speak to your authority. Those don't scream your expertise. Those those don't have any of the wonderful powers, which we haven't even gone into yet about the interior of the book. Um, and those things don't last, right? The
Yeah.
pen gets thrown away, the mug gets taken to Goodwill, the all of that, but the book tends to hang out and continues to speak your expertise. Anyone who wants to publish a book, if they want to do it right, should plan to invest some money. Um, Even if they choose to do it through self-publishing, they should hire a professional editor. They should hire a professional layout person. They should have a professional cover done. Um, it can be done on a shoestring. I did my first book for very cheap. Um, but for most of us, unless most of my clients don't want to have to learn the world of publishing to publish their book.
Yeah.
They want
Yeah.
to do the things they're good at and let people like me create a professional product and get it into the market and hopefully make them an Amazon #1 best-selling author in the process.
And then also, this is a bias that again probably I read from one of the big fish, but them saying like if you look at acknowledgments and so on in books, so, they'll often say the my editor, is the golden key, and you have to be able to let your editor do their thing. You can't you can't you fall in love with everything you write because the editor is going to change it and do things in a different way or whatever. So, do most of these type of books that we're talking about, do they have editors as well? Is this
Yeah,
company there?
absolutely. And Steve, there are different kinds of editors. There are content editors, developmental editors, copy editors, and the editor is key. Yeah, because that's the thing about publishing is if you choose to ever self-publish, and I'm a huge fan of self-publishing,
Yeah,
um, but you have to do everything, and if you do any one thing poorly, the whole thing, the whole thing can be a disappointment. So the best content, but poorly edited, is going to be a huge disappointment. The
right.
best content with great editing, but poorly laid out, is going to be a disappointment. And so all of those things are really key. But yeah, you speak as if you sound like you've been there before with the editor, Steve. And
No, I really haven't. I'm interested in it, so I've heard certain things, but
yep,
in your book, you actually say that the content editing is optional, but the copy editing is mandatory.
yep,
So just
yeah,
explain the difference in those for people that may not know.
yeah. So the content editor is looking at the content, the flow. What are you saying? Are you saying it well? The copy editor is working at grammar, punctuation, and word choice. Content editing, we say, is optional for a couple reasons. One is it takes a lot of time and a lot of money if you really look at it that way. And a lot of people who are writing books, particularly in the business world, I say content editing is optional because they know their content. They know what they're trying to convey, and they know it better than their content editor will.
Hmm.
So, Steve, if you were writing a book on leadership and you wanted to, let's say you wanted to use it as a tool to bring in more clients for leadership coaching, for instance,
Yeah.
um, you know you've lived in this industry for so long, your content editor has not. But what we would recommend you do is do something called an editorial board process, which is gather 3 to 5, 3 to 8 people that are in your industry or are in your target market and have them read your book and give you feedback. That is a really great way to sidestep the time and expense of content editing because you can accomplish that in a couple weeks instead of, perhaps several months. But copy editing is absolutely mandatory. That's the thing for making it grammatically correct, catching those typos and things like that. The best writer the best writers require editors. In fact, the best editors, when they sit down to write, also require editors. You can't edit your own work. Um, I joke around, in my book about our first book, The Video Tractor Beam, and I'll say, it was actually a pretty cruddy book because I wrote it, I edited it, and I laid it out. Fortunately, I didn't do the cover. Okay, so it's actually in my mind a fairly cruddy little book, but it accomplished everything I wanted it to accomplish. It became an Amazon #1 bestseller in small business marketing and entrepreneurship. It beat Dave Ramsey, and I mentioned Malcolm Gladwell and John Maxwell and a bunch of all those people on that day. And it brought us our first 5-digit clients. So it accomplished everything it needed to do, even though it wasn't the best book. Fortunately, I learned lessons, and we don't do it that way anymore. Now, I have several professional editors and several professional layout people, and we do all those things. But it is an it does show the power of a book, even if it's not perfectly executed. It can be really incredible.
And isn't there some, it's kind of like, and I'm not trying to diminish in any way, shape, or form, your credential here or whatever, but there's a lot of #1 bestsellers or Amazon bestsellers or whatever. And isn't there some strategies around that, like, okay, on this particular day, every one of your friends and everybody's going to do this or whatever, so they kind of get that, and then they ride that forever. Is that part of the strategy?
Yeah, so there are obviously different kinds of bestsellers, right? There's Amazon, there's Wall Street Journal, USA Today, New York Times, etc. And each one of those is built upon a strategy of concentrating the right number of sales in the right places at the right time.
Yeah.
They're just done at different scales.
Uh,
With the New York Times, it's measured over several weeks of sales, and it has to be through a variety of different outlets. Wall Street Journal, USA Today is a different metric, and Amazon is a different metric. The great thing about Amazon is tabulating sales on an hourly basis because of the nature of it being all in that ecosystem.
hmm
And so our job in doing an Amazon #1 bestseller is to basically take what would perhaps be weeks of sales, but bring them together in a day in order to create a significant sales spike that outsells all of the other books that are competing. And that, of course, yes, of course, if you're launching a book, you're going to ask your friends and your family to go buy that book, but you're also going to extend that to your business network and to launch partners, other people and organizations that would promote on your behalf. One of the things I absolutely love about the Amazon bestseller is that you can't buy your way into it because we do it around the Kindle and you can only buy one Kindle copy per Amazon account. So there's no way for someone to, buy 50 or 100 copies and have it count as 50 or 100 copies. Whereas, and you may have heard these stories, the New York Times bestseller can be manipulated. It's a very expensive manipulation, but there are agencies out there that will take your $250,000 to $500,000, and they will arrange brokered purchases through the proper outlets so that the sales numbers are there in order to qualify for that. And Which isn't to take away from all the amazing New York Times #1 best-selling books, but there are a fair number of them that have that's how the sales numbers happen, is through a brokered purchase.
Okay, so let's say I'm thinking of clients I have and other people I know and whatever. Okay, so let's say, I think writing a book's a good idea. That would be good for my business and good for promotion, whatever. So explain to me the process. So do I start writing first? Do I contact someone like you first? Do I, what's the process if I think this sounds like a good idea?
Thanks, Steve. It's any of that. Quite honestly, we have some authors contact us and they just know they need a book, but they don't know what it is yet.
Hmm.
And we can help them through that process. It's like, why do you want to write a book? What do you want it to do for you? Is this to bring new clients or gain exposure, or to set you up for speaking? What's the purpose? Other clients come to us very late in in it, where the manuscript is essentially complete and they need help carrying them through the rest of the process. In
Yeah.
which case, we'll take them through copy editing, layout, cover design, publication, and bestseller launch. So we can really help people at any of those stages. If they come to us at an early stage, depending on what they need, we may refer them to a book coach, or to a ghostwriter if that's what they want to do. Or if they want to use one of our rapid writing techniques, like do it around the FAQ model that we talked about, then we can also help them in-house.
And so what about, okay, you said like, say like me, I'm going to write a book on leadership. So I'm not bold enough to say that, oh, all these leadership ideas are exactly my ideas. It's because I talk to other people, I interview people, I've tried this, I've tried that, I've learned from others. So what I come up with to write a book may not be 100% unique. Well, it won't be 100% unique. Because they're not on my ideas, but I'll put them together in a certain way. Does someone like me have to worry about infringement or stealing someone's idea or putting it in a book and then someone said, "Wait a minute, that's in my book" or something.
Yeah, that's a fair question, Steve. And interestingly enough, on all the podcasts I've been on, nobody has asked that question. So um, first, I thought you were going to go down the road of, are you really an expert? And I'm sitting here going, you've done almost 300 interviews just for your podcast, and that's in addition to all the other things you've done. You're an expert. But as far as infringement and copyright, we just say, you just give credit where credit is due.
Yeah,
The hard part is there are things you've learned and you don't remember where you've learned them.
exactly. It's my line now, but I heard it from somebody else 10 years ago and I just forgot who that was. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And by the way, sometimes the person you're going to give credit for, they didn't come up with it either.
Yeah.
So, like one of the phrases I love to use is people support what they create.
Yeah.
And I learned it from Brendan Burchard. I have no idea who Brendan Burchard learned it from or if he coined it whole cloth. So when I referenced that in The Power of the Published, I just said, there was a great phrase I heard from Brendan Burchard, and it was people support what they create. As you know, there are some really famous quotations that people attribute to famous people.
Right.
Those famous people never said those words.
Right, right. Yeah.
You
I heard
know,
somebody say that if Einstein really said all the things he gets credit for, there's no way, right?
right.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, but no, it's just a matter of giving credit where credit is due, and not not misrepresenting somebody else's work as your own,
Your own,
but inevitably there are things we learn that we just don't know where we learned them. Some of those the editor can do some fact checking to find,
yeah.
and others, especially when it comes to marketing, right? Everyone says there's nothing new under the sun. I'm not sure if that's true, but
Yeah.
you know, I wonder who said that. No.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Another thing that there were some real business correlations too, as in writing a book. Like I love your fact, your thing about perfection is the enemy. Done is better than perfect, and that's so true that if we wait till it's perfect, then it never gets done, or we
Yeah.
spend too much time doing it. So it needs to get out there, and we need to tweak it as we go. Totally understand that. But you also talk about this 80% approach. So explain to the listeners what the 80% approach is.
Yeah, so the 80% approach I learned from somebody else, and I gave them credit in my book, and I can't off the top of my head remember it right now. Was it Olson? Anyway,
Yeah.
so the 80% approach is fantastic. What it basically says is that when you sit down and take a crack at a project, no matter how much preparation you give, that project's probably going to be about an 80% project, 80% job. Like if you were going to score it, okay, give yourself a grade, I give it 80%. Okay.
Yeah.
If you come back at it again to go through it again, you're probably going to improve it 80% more. Okay. The 80% of the 20% you hadn't, that you had left on the table the first time.
Mhm.
The point is that as you are going through it, you can only advance it so far. And then at some point, you're like, and I'm just spacing on who I heard about, who I learned this from. He's so famous too. But what you find is after you've done two or three cracks at something, it's a point of diminishing returns.
Mhm.
And if you decide you want to give it uh, five, six, seven, eight, you are still only approaching perfection, but will never reach perfection. And at that point, you are probably working on details that nobody besides you will ever discover. In fact, the perfect example for this, ah, where is that book? Dang it. Oh, here. All right. So for the video, so for people on video, here's our first book, The Video Tractor Beam. So, John Writing, my business partner, made this cover, and he spent absolutely hours and hours and hours and hours on it. But I promise you that the first hour he got 80%. The second hour he improved it another 80%, which is what does that make it 92% or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And he spent the remaining hours fiddling with stuff that nobody will ever notice. Okay,
Yeah.
it was something like something in the way that camera was pictured on the cover, or some weird shading or whatever that only he as the artist will ever know. So the idea of that is that your book is never going to be perfect. Do your passes, but also hand it off to others so they can contribute their 80% to the
Yeah.
project and make it better.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And then you did say too that just because people see covers and are attracted to covers, that you think the artwork is something. Don't be cheap on the artwork. That's a big piece.
Yeah, I mean, people are far more likely to see your cover than they will be to read the words inside the book,
Right. Right.
sadly, right? So, no matter how great your words are in front, are inside, if the cover's crappy, they will probably never get to those words. So,
Yeah.
spend a little money on the cover. Um, Steve, our process is we do a cover contest and we invite artists from around the world to participate in the cover design process.
Mhm.
And that way, our authors, instead of getting two or three designs from an in-house artist, will get like 100 to 200 designs to choose from. And it's a blast. Our clients love it. I think it creates a superior product. And something we've done now, well, for a couple hundred books.
What do you think works better in the business world right now? Someone to write a book that's more instructional, like do like a framework, do this, do that, do that type of thing, or is it more of a memoir This is these are stories that happen to me and others that I know and whatever. What do you think is more effective? I'm
Yeah,
just
that's
expertise.
a great question. I've never thought about it. If just off the top of my head, I would say it depends upon stage of life and stage of business.
Yeah.
Um, you know, we're probably going to read Elon Musk's memoir. You
Mhm.
know, we, but sadly, the memoir of the accountant whose office is next door to me, I'm probably not going to pick up and read,
Right.
right? Um, which is sad because, he's probably got incredible stories to tell.
Hmm.
So, unless I would say, unless you either have celebrity or you are at that stage of life where the legacy piece is more important than the business piece,
Hmm.
I would do the nonfiction book, the prescriptive book that's, sharing your strategies, your methods, your message, but maybe do that couched in story because story, as you know, is so powerful. So
Yeah.
tell stories like in the Power of the Publish. You saw that I take pains to tell the stories of many of my authors and others that I know about what books have done for them. You should do that in your own business as well. But we also do those legacy pieces as well. We do those memoirs, and some of those are our favorite books.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm a huge believer, as you probably know, in storytelling, and at least my personality and others as well. We remember the story more than the formula or the framework. So it's
Yep.
yeah.
On that note, if you don't mind, I'd like to slip
Sure.
a story in.
Yeah, absolutely.
With this client, we call her Cindy because we protect change the names to protect the innocent and all that.
Yeah.
Cindy reached out to us, and it was a couple months. She said, "Hey, Everett, I'm going to this conference in Dubai. It was a medical marketing conference." She says, "I'm going to go there in a couple months, and I've been working on this manuscript. Do you think you could help me turn it into a book so that I can take the book with me on my trip?" I said, "Yeah, well, let's do it." So she boarded the plane with 5 or 10 copies of her book and arrived in Dubai, went to the conference, and on the first day handed out all of her copies of the book to some key people she wanted to have it.
Hmm.
Well, that night she's walking around the lobby of the hotel and she sees someone reading her book. She's like, "Okay, that's pretty cool. Like, the first time you see someone read your book, that's amazing."
Yeah.
Um, Late the next morning, um, a different person came to her and said, "Hey, I read your book last night and I want to talk to you." She actually had that experience happen several times during that conference. And as a result of her taking the book to the conference and putting it in these people's hands, she ended up getting several high paying clients that certainly more than paid for her experience there and for her publishing. One of the clients asked her to then become a contributor in a textbook on medical marketing, which of course puts her in the intelligentsia of the industry, which I think is really, really critical. And another client hired her to come back, sponsored her to speak at that conference the following year. And so, because she took a handful of books to this conference, it really moved her onto the international stage
Yeah.
in her industry.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a great illustration of the power of books.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Everett, in anticipation of what of our discussion today, is there anything that I haven't asked you or we haven't covered that you want to be sure and get in the program?
Thank you for asking, Steve. I think the one thing that people probably don't know about is hybrid publishing and what that is as an option.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
people have that understanding of what traditional publishing is. And as we've discussed, that can be a real disappointment, sadly, and incredibly hard to break into. Self-publishing, like we talked about, I'm a huge fan, but you have to learn how to do everything or contract it. And if any part of it's bad, it's a disappointment.
Mhm.
Hybrid is what we do, and that sits in between. And we like to think we're the best of both worlds, um, because what we do is we set our clients' books up in accounts they own so that they have complete ownership of their IP instead of sacrificing it in traditional publishing. They receive all 100% of the royalties. They get their books at cost. They have complete creative control, but they don't have to do everything. And we carry it through the professional process of editing, layout, cover design, publishing, and launch. And so at the end of the day, it's something a lot of our clients really prefer because that especially in the business world, you need control of your IP.
Yeah.
And to be able to get your books at cost and things like that really gives you some really great options going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. So, Everett, at this point in the interview, I always ask my guests the same common question, and that question is, in relation to leadership, what is a pearl of wisdom that you could leave us with today?
Gosh, I think one of the best things a leader can do is find other leaders, be in community with other leaders. I'm a huge fan of mastermind groups.
Yeah.
And if I were to do it all over again, I'd have probably been in a mastermind group in college. Of course, I didn't know such a thing, would have been available or existed. But um, I think that is just the huge lesson. Someone has gone down these paths that you're going down before you,
Yeah.
and you can learn from them, and then you can pass it on to others, others behind you.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, Everett, this has been a pleasure. I learned a lot in your book. I learned a lot talking to you today, which is why I do these podcasts. So I appreciate your time and effort to be on the show today. And, it makes a lot of sense. So I'm sure people listening, I'm sure would walk away from this as maybe I should write a book, so, and that's what it's all about. So, yeah,
Well, if we've done our job, I mean, the worst book is the one that's either on a hard drive or stuck in our brain.
yeah.
Those are the books that are tragic.
Well,
So
and you've, I can't tell you how many people that have said, over the decades that I've been around where, gosh, I wish I would have had my dad write that down, or I wish I would have had so and so document that or what, because now they're gone and we don't have it. And like you said, it disappears. So yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Well, thanks again for your time today, and have a good rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see each other down the road one of these days.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Take care. Bye bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. To listen to all my interviews, subscribe to Profiles in Leadership with Steve Anderson on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, and many other popular podcast platforms. Some of these interviews are on video, and you can search YouTube for Profiles in Leadership with Steve Anderson. You can also access the entire library of interviews on my website, orange.coaching.com, and that is orangetheword.coaching.com, and go to the Media Center and click on Podcasts or Video Gallery. You can also enter the website from pilpodcast.com.